Now, the name of this episode is The Difference Between Busy and Diligent. And we'll reference Proverbs 12:24 for our scripture. Now, have you ever worked with someone who was always busy, but somehow never got anything meaningful done? So let me tell you about Chris. He was a mid-level operations manager at a software company. And if you walked by his office, Chris was always in motion, running between back-to-back meetings, juggling 3 conversations on Slack while someone was presenting in a meeting, scarfing down a sandwich at his desk while responding to what seemed like an endless stream of urgent emails. Now, to most people, Chris looked like the hardest worker in the building, the guy who never took a real lunch break, who always seemed to be putting out the next fire. But his boss started noticing some patterns. Chris's projects were consistently delivered late or incomplete. His team of 8 people were constantly asking each other what their current priorities were because they seemed to shift every few days. Now, critical decisions got bottlenecked because Chris was always too busy to respond to questions that required his input. And after a particularly frustrating quarter where 2 major initiatives stalled out completely, his boss pulled him aside for a conversation that changed everything. He said, "Chris, you're working harder than anyone on this floor, but you're not working smart. You're a leader now. Leaders get paid to think, not just react." Man, that hit Chris like a bucket of cold water. He had never thought about it that way before. So he did something radical. He opened up his Outlook calendar. He cleared every meeting that wasn't absolutely essential. Then he started blocking off 2-hour chunks for actual thinking and planning. He started beginning each week by identifying the 3 most important outcomes that he needed to deliver. And then he just ruthlessly said no to everything else. At first, Chris felt kind of guilty about this. I mean, he'd built his entire professional identity around being the busiest guy in the office. But within about 6 weeks, something interesting happened. His project managers, they stopped chasing him down for decisions. His team meetings became more focused and productive instead of chaotic status updates. And his quarterly reviews went from works hard to delivers results. An irony? Well, Chris told me that the more deliberate pace was actually harder than his old frantic approach. Being busy had been the easy way out, a way to feel super productive without actually being accountable for the outcomes. In Proverbs 12:24, it says, "Diligent hands will rule, but laziness ends in forced labor." So this isn't about grinding harder. It's about working with intentionality and focus. And here's the kicker. Laziness doesn't always look like doing nothing. Sometimes it looks like being the busiest person on the team while avoiding the hard work of actually thinking through problems and making tough decisions. Real diligence means doing the right things even when they're harder than just saying busy. So what do you do with Chris's story and this proverb? Well, first I'd say audit your energy. Track what you actually do for an entire week. How much time goes to urgent but not important tasks versus the work that you really need to do to move the needle? You might be surprised. And second, plan before you react. Start each day by identifying your top 2 priorities, the things that if completed would make the rest of the day a complete success. Attack those first before you open email or Slack or get involved in anything else. And third, embrace productive discomfort. Diligence often feels harder than being busy because it requires making tough choices and being accountable for outcomes. And that discomfort is the sign you're doing real leadership work. So if this hit home for you today, share it with someone who's working hard but feeling stuck in the hamster wheel. Remember, diligence leads to influence. So don't just stay busy, lead with purpose. See you next time.